Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrane. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking your full potential in sales, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest. Tony Cross, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Paul. I'm excellent. I'm outstanding. It's been a good week, and we're ready to talk sales again, sales and sales management.
What else would we be talking? Best topic in the world, and in my opinion, we got to get into a little bit about what you've been doing and what you've been up to since the last time you're on the show. You have a big old mission and a big old dream. I think if I remember it correctly, it's the 1 million. To coach 1 million salespeople towards sales excellence. And so let's just catch up on that. How are you doing with it?
Yeah, spot on, Paul. That's been our mission for probably the last decade or so. And last year was an exceptional year for us. We did well as a business, but we did well in terms of our mission. We're well on that path in terms of getting to coaching salespeople through their sales managers mostly. But certainly we believe we're making a dent in the universe.
Oh, that's wonderful. And by coaching, you're meaning that one-on-one tie together excellence and behavior, driving excellence and behavior type coaching, right? We're not talking, that's what we're shooting for.
Spot on. So it's those one-on-one conversations that sales managers are having, or certainly should be having, with each of their people around pipelines, around winning big opportunities, around maximizing account yield. So many different types of coaching conversations, but the methodology is the same. So asking great questions and then leading through your questions, leading salespeople to taking action, identifying their blind spots, and then taking action.
So you happen to be an amazing point of leverage with and information gathering with the ability to talk with all of these managers and understand what's going on in the markets in general. What is happening out there right now? What are you hearing from those frontline managers and coaches, and what are their sales teams telling them?
Paul, I don't want to say it's more of the same, but there's still lots of noise in the system. So many organizations are asking their sales managers to do many things that are not necessarily core to their function, which is, as you mentioned, enabling their sales people. So that hasn't changed. So there's certainly this noise, this distraction. And what happens then is salespeople become inwardly focused instead of outwardly focused towards delivering value for their customers. What we have seen recently is the uncertainty. So I think all of the markets are dealing with uncertainty ranging from post-COVID issues through recession issues, through crazy wars that are carrying on, through to crazy geopolitics. The trade tariff issue is on everyone's minds. What is it going to mean for us as a business? For example, we have a customer whose share price overnight, dropped 30%. So what does that then mean internally for their sales team? Do the customers then ask them, what's happening? Internally in our business, even my staff are asking, so how does this impact us and our ability to deliver to global customers? So there is this uncertainty. And I always see it this way: when there's uncertainty, there's often also fear and there's doubt. And when those three get together, it's not a great combination for salespeople, because customers start deferring their decisions. Maybe we can wait a little bit longer. Let's just see what's going to happen before we decide to buy a product, to buy a solution. So in a nutshell, I would say the uncertainty is at, I don't want to say an all-time high, because who am I to say that, but certainly it's higher than we've seen probably in the last 10 years or so.
You are certain about the uncertainty.
I'm certain that it's a lot more uncertain out there for sure.
Yeah, and that is a theme that we're dealing with. And so, how are let's just dive into the managers then, and your coaching platforms. I mean, how do you help them coach towards that uncertainty and drive self leadership and performance despite the uncertainty?
Well, I think the key thing, first of all, is to not do what many people out there are saying, let's get back to basics. I personally don't like that term. I say, let's look at the foundations. So make sure the foundations of those one-on-one, the cadence of the one-on-one coaching is in place. So despite everything else that's in our circle of influence, we can do that as managers, as sales leaders. And then the second thing is to help our salespeople help their customers make the decision. So what I mean by that is I've seen many proposals. We used to do this, a number of years ago. We used to give 15 different options. Customer, we can do it this way or this way or this way. Maybe we can start then, or then. And that's actually adding to their confusion. So, having the ability to offer, these different options is great, and the flexibility and the agility that comes with it. But then you've got to actually help the customer say, well, this is what we can do. Let's start with a pilot. Let's not go the full project. Let's begin with one region, whatever that may be, and then let's build on from there. So it's really the opportunity is for salespeople to hold the hands of the customers, so to speak, and facilitate their buying, which is really what we've been doing all these years. But now is the time for us really to get good at that. And the managers through coaching need to get that message across. Help your customer make the buying decision. Paul, I know you and I have spoken about this before. Often we talk so much about the selling process. Really we've got 6 steps, 8 steps, 3 steps, whatever it may be. And we often ask the question, okay, but what's your buying process? Now, to a salesperson, they go, what do you mean? Well, typically, how do your decision makers at your customers make these decisions? Let's map that out first. And then let's align our selling process to their buying process. And that is a real skill that is not really taught in many sales training programs. That's a skill that managers can impart and coach in their people. So there are many, in my opinion, there are many things that managers can do through this platform and cadence of coaching.
We had a recent publication. Our founder, George Bruntine, he's a friend. He's also a brilliant guy. He's just really smart guy, and he does a lot in terms of systems thinking and bringing that to sales. But he did some research and came out with a paper around win rates relative to decision makers touched and how we interoperate with those decision makers. And it really comes down to that, again, controlling the controllables that you're talking about, but then doing it more effectively. So how do you expand your center of influence? You can control that, and how you go out and do that. And you can also understand, even better these days, I would argue, specific issues that are apparent to each influencer, and being able to speak to those specific issues on each influencer or decision maker in a deal, and help them narrow choice individually and then collectively is really, really important. And doing that systematically. So when you talk about understanding a buying decision, those buying decisions have become more complex recently. But there are ways to dive in and really, finding the great ones are diving in and simplifying even those more complex decisions. Exactly what you're saying. Instead of offering 17 options, they're offering 2 and highly recommending 1. But they're able to do that across the whole buying center. How much is kind of customization of options coming up, and customization of of proposals to highly target each buyer and to take away their doubts? Is that coming up? Do you hear that in market?
Certainly, and it's so interesting because when we're dealing with one person at a customer, we have a series of conversations, and we take all that rich value and we put it in our proposal. Sometimes that doesn't happen, as strange as that may sound. And we assume that the person we're dealing with has bought in and the buying signals are great. But then what happens is, as we all know, there's a buying committee. So the proposal, the buying vision, is shared amongst 6 or 7 people. Now, what happens then? You need to be able to talk to each of those people. Maybe they're not in the room. There's a great saying, sometimes a sale is made without the salesperson being in the room. So we have to think about that. And again, from a coaching perspective, when we get into coaching deals, we often say, well, who are you dealing with? Who's your main relationship? And then we ask the normal questions, who's power, who's the financial decision maker? But we leave it there. We don't really deep dive and really discuss, as you say, the ecosystem. And anyone on this who listens to this podcast needs to be reading George's post for sure. Because sales is an ecosystem, and then buying is an ecosystem if we think about it. So there's an ecosystem of different decision makers. What we've been doing quite recently, Paul, is doing a draft buying vision. And what I mean by that is it's 90% the buying vision, but then we present it to the customer. But we call it a draft because it's not been finalized, and we present it. And then what happens is the customer gives you rich feedback. I really like this, but I don't think we're covering enough. For John, I know John is the logistics person. He's going to ask these questions, or Fred is really the person who's going to want to understand the risk in this complex solution you're proposing. Maybe we need to talk to more of that in the buying vision. And then you finalize the buying vision. But it's as if you've worked with the customer on it. It's not this arm's length relationship. It's not, let me guess what the buyer is thinking, and let the buyer guess what the solution provider is going to come up with. Let's stop that. I don't want to say nonsense, but let's stop those games, and let's just have a real good conversation with customers. And they understand you're trying to run a business, and they understand that they're trying to run a business. So salespeople need to align outcomes. It's not only about making the money, but it's also not only about giving the ultimate solution to the customer. It's both. It needs to be both. And if I had to say to sales managers on listening, we're not doing enough in this space. There's no doubt that we're not taking the really rich conversations that we have along the buying journey and articulating them into the buying vision or the proposal nearly enough. We're losing some of that along the timeline, if you like.
A very practical tip. This is a very practical one. I shouldn't be giving away secrets, but and people have likely already done this. One of the best uses that I've found of AI in the recent past, especially with software sales and when you do things online, is that ability to ensure that when you're asking great questions of that buying center in the room, to be able to get that into a transcript and take out some notes from that. So, and be able then to directly communicate on that to that individual. That really has been a great tool and use of it. I don't want to go really down the huge AI route today, but it is a wonderful tool in that, because I used to take pages and pages and pages of notes because I've always believed in this, and that has gone away. And so I just jot some core notes, and I'm able to get the transcript and then dive into that and even query the transcript. That has been a game changer in that. So it's a good way to leverage it. And coaches out there that are looking at that, one of the things that Tony and his team are really good at doing is taking the concept of this buying center to helping you coach your rep towards strategic action, right? It's not just okay, I filled out these things in theory. Go into your CRM, and what are the 6 things that I filled out? I filled out that should help me win the deal. Go fill out your blue sheet. That should help you win the deal. It's taking that to actual. What are the actions then that you can take to give yourself a better opportunity to win the deal? And you're out there doing that every day, Tony. I respect the heck out of it. One of the things that you're working on in the near term that I really want to bring up that can help bring that more to life. I love this idea that you're doing. I'm just going to mention the words chalk and talk, and you tell me a little bit about what it is and how you're bringing that ability to coach and drive strategic action to the market.
Yeah, Paul. So what we've realized is that there's many great sales conferences out there. There's many great vendors, inviting customers and prospects to come and watch slide presentations. There's online things that are happening all the time. And then we said, what if we could just get a group of sales leaders in a room where we use the chalkboard or the whiteboard, if you like, and we just talk and talk. So we've kickstarted that in London. We're also going to be doing it in Melbourne in July, and we have some interest in the US and actually even some interest in India to have a chalk talk where, as I say, like-minded sales leaders who want to brainstorm a challenge or discuss a topic. And then we may draw a few pictures and we may come up with a model and just share with the industry what some of the best practices are and some practical tools that they can leave. You speak about the coaching towards actions. We have a model, we call it the ICE model: identify, clarify, and explore. So we need to ask questions to identify a person's gap. So identify a gap in the deal or a gap in the pipeline. Then clarify possible causes of that gap, and then explore actions. So it's a very simple, but if you picture this on a chalkboard, and we could just write it out and say ICE. And let's now talk about pipeline, which is the topic for our upcoming 18th of June one in London. So let's talk about it and say, what are the questions you can ask your salespeople around their pipeline? Because we moved past, let's be frank, we've moved past, have you got 6 times cover in your pipeline? We really should be past that. We should be talking about what are the value, volume, velocity, what is the shape of your pipeline? And then clarifying the reason and exploring actions for somebody to fix. So that's going to be the practical manner of doing this chalk and talk. And it's fascinating and fantastic to be face to face, eye to eye, toe to toe with people. We don't have to be behind a screen. We can actually be in a room. The one we ran recently in London was amazing. Very short, practical, bit of good networking happening. Possibly a drink in your hand or a cup of coffee and a canapé, and just talking about these challenges. And I learned so much from the session, and the feedback has been incredible.
Well, and I love this model because driving people out, the way we have really embraced learning in the recent, decade, and even more so since the pandemic, is places like this, right? And it takes away that interaction and that give and take. And I love that we're able to have this give and take, but like the listener can't. And so, but being able to have that in a live environment, see somebody's eyes, really ask questions, come to them afterwards, dive in. And I love that model that you have because it really drives that driving action, at least driving innovation, that things that you can decide to act upon is the heart of it, right? It is the heart of helping someone move that pipeline along. You mentioned something there, 6x coverage. There's some really interesting stats out that have come out in the past couple of months. I'll see if I can link to them on the show, but it's mainly pipelines have been shrinking overall in general. So people need to make do with 2x, 3x instead of the old rule of thumb. 6x, 10x, whatever that may be. I've always just shot for a qualified, really qualified pipeline, right? But what are you seeing? Is the uncertainty of the market driving smaller pipelines, or are teams qualifying more? How are you seeing those things out there in market?
Paul, there's no doubt that the quality of pipelines is improving. And why or how I can say that is that there has been this attention on, rubbish in, rubbish out. We cannot be building a pipeline that's made up of, a wish list or a dream list. So I think the reality is setting in to say, are these opportunities actually real? They may not happen, but at least they're real. But there's still this tendency to just look at value. So I need $1 million. I have 1.5 million in my pipeline in terms of value. So I'm not quite there, but I'm okay. What we argue is that it's also about the velocity. So are the deals moving through the stages? And it's also a factor is volume. Because if you have 3 deals that make up that 1.5, and one or maybe 2 of those deals don't happen or they're pushed out, then you're in real trouble. So it needs to be that. And then shape, which is early, if you keep it simple, early, middle, and late. Where are the deals? Because it's about identifying the gap in the future. What I also see, Paul, is many salespeople and many sales managers don't fully grasp the concept of a selling cycle, a sales cycle. Now that may sound strange, but if you break it down to its core, if your average sales cycle for what it is that you sell is, let's say, 3 months, that means if you're already in your financial year, you have a maximum of 8 or 9 months, really, because the balance is going to be for next financial year. And it sounds like maths, but it's honestly what sales managers need to be eyes wide open to. What I am seeing is most organizations, as we all know, we get into Q4 and there's a scramble. We want to, either save the day or we want to really, boost the profits, whatever it may be. And there's such focus in Q4. Cancel training, cancel anything. We need to really be closing out these deals. And I understand that. Running a business, I fully understand that. But what about Q1? I always say, what about Q1? Because if you just, I don't want to say destroying, if you succeeding to take your pipeline, winning those deals, but you have nothing for Q1 and possibly Q2, if you have a longer sales cycle, it's not rocket science, and it's not a gypsy with a crystal ball. This is going to happen. You're going to have a gap in your pipeline. So I love talking about pipelines. I love talking, we actually have a question, is it pipeline or pipe lies? And it's not purely around the I want to say the honesty or the accuracy of the data. That's important. That's data sanitization or pipeline sanitization. But what else is that pipeline telling you? And then the last point, Paul, is that many sales managers go, oh, our pipeline is below what it needs to be. It's 1.5x. It should be 2x or 3x. We need more opportunities into the pipe. But that's only one possible solution to somebody whose early stage is weak. Now, if my early stage is really strong and my middle stage is bloated, it's that many opportunities sitting there. I have a different problem to my colleague whose early stage is empty. So there's different problems. But so the solution, a sales manager needs to be able to diagnose through, sensible, I want to say sensible, practical, actually fairly simple. And yes, you can use AI and you can use technology, and that's great if it's going to help you do this. Fantastic. But then you have to articulate what I need each salesperson to do and then coach them towards those actions. Because as I say, Fred is going to be different to John, is going to be different to Tony, and have different challenges. You can't just say, people, we need more opportunities in our pipeline.
Yeah, I always, the way I like to frame that is you need to have one language and you're going to have different people and different problems within that one language. But as long as you're all speaking the same language, that is a fundamental issue that you could talk about all day, which is people don't define what a pipeline looks like and how and where, because they don't have the appropriate language around it. So they can't solve the different problems individually. Then it all just becomes a deal-based thing. But we could go on with that forever. What I really want to dive into is how do people get in touch with you, and when the Chalks and Talks, can you give more details on that if people want to attend?
Yeah, sure. So easiest way to get hold of me is an email address. So Tony C, TONYC, at growthmattersintl.com. We have a website, we have a LinkedIn presence, the usual contact places, but that if they want to get directly in contact with me, that's the good place to go. We also have a list of these Chalk and Talks that we could share with anyone who's interested. They are in a particular city because they are face-to-face, as we said. The next one coming up, as I mentioned, will be in London next month, and then in Melbourne in the month after that, in July.
You are taking the international part of your name of Growth Matters International very seriously.
Well, we can't get to 1 million people in one territory, Paul. We need to share the love, let's call it. And a good friend of mine, Mike Weinberg, often says to me, he said, Tony, the challenges are not different. Whether you're operating in North America, if you're operating in South America, in Africa, in APAC, wherever you are, Europe, the challenges are very similar. Of course, we've got cultural differences and language differences, but the challenges in sales management are fairly standard. So we like to spread the word far and wide.
Well, and I like how you use that term foundations instead of basics then, because they're not necessarily basic to people, right? But getting back to that foundation and the foundation of what are those core truths and those core skills and that we need to have. Doing great work, man. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm trying to get to this one in June. I likely won't be there, but we are definitely excited to be a part of these and getting the news out. Because they're great work and it's intimate, small setting. You get to actually get stuff done and network, but come out of it with actions that you can take to elevate your team. And that's exciting. That's very, very exciting. So,
yeah, I appreciate that, Paul. I appreciate the support. And definitely we're looking forward to doing one again in London, I think in September, and possibly Dublin, and working with partners like yourself to really just share this information that the sales managers, we often say it is one of the toughest jobs in the world. So, let's help them. Let's help them be more successful. And if each person walks away with one practical thing that they can go and implement, the following day, then we see that as success.
Let's make it happen. All right, everybody. With that, we're going to close out today's episode. Tony, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to have you on again. We'll talk a little bit about how these are going and that type of stuff. Maybe 6 months, 8 months. We'll make sure we do that. And keep getting out there. Keep shining bright. Everybody, I highly recommend Growth Matters International. Tony Cross. Reach out to him. He gave his email address, and you can find him on LinkedIn and the web. With that, we will sign off and say, keep shining bright. Have a great day.